Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Riverfront Red Show. This is episode number 509 of the world's most dangerous podcasts, where we discuss the Cincinnati Reds and occasionally Merv Rettenmund. I'm your host, Nate Dotson, while Chad Dotson is still mourning the loss of one Joseph Daniel Votto. With me this week are a couple familiar faces. We'll start out with up top, Bill Lack. How are you? The Podfather himself.
Doing great. I'm one of the few guys still around that can remember Merv Rettenmund playing for the Reds.
His name popped up. I'm not going to pretend like I knew who he was until I did a little research.
And then you didn't remember the guy they traded for him.
Listen, I can be forgiven once or twice.
There you go.
Also with us this week is the creator of RedReporter.com and one of the best Twitter follows in the universe, Wick Terrell. How's it going, Wick?
I'm doing great. We are recording on Adam Dunn's 44th birthday, so I feel extra bad that Chad's not here tonight. So shout out to Chad on his the Big Donkey's 44th, and this 535-foot home run is for him. So
100%. Happy birthday to Adam Dunn.
He's now as old as his number.
He is. That's right. That's right.
Guys, I firstly just want to thank you both for being here. I know it must have been difficult to tear yourselves away from this epic Thursday night football clash between the Chicago Bears and who are they playing?
Carolina, garbage. I think.
Carolina.
Yeah.
Garbage.
Which the Bears have. It's a win-win for the Bears. If they win, they knock Carolina down first because they have Carolina's #1 draft pick.
Ooh.
They do. That's right. I forgot about that. Yep.
Awesome. Well, before we go any further, head over to YouTube and or your favorite podcast app. Give us a subscribe, like, or follow. You know we hate to ask, but we got to do it. Speaking of things that we are appreciative of, our Patreon community, we would not be able to do this without the support of y'all. And if anybody wants to join that family, go a little deeper, help keep this ship afloat, head on over to patreon.com/riverfrontcincy, and you too can join the family. All right, so this is the first podcast we are recording since we got that, I won't call it dreadful news, though I personally think it's pretty dreadful, since the Reds announced that they are not picking up Joey Votto's option. I think it's fair to say that we all kind of saw it coming. The conversation online over those first 24, 36 hours was pretty brutal. Some of us got yelled at by Marty Brenneman, which I think officially makes me a part of the Riverfront family.
I think that's a badge of honor, man. I'd wear that on a medal on front of my shirt, you know?
It's been a while since I've been yelled at by Marty, but it's I remember the first time and the second and third and fourth times. It happens often, man. It really does.
So I've got some catching up to do.
I must not be out there often enough because I've never been yelled at by Marty. So I feel kind of left out here, you know?
There's still time, Bill. Well,
that's right.
You know, now that we're a bit removed, the dust has settled a little bit. I wanted to just go around and get your all's thoughts on whether it just be how you feel about how it was handled. Just want to reflect on Joey's career for a couple minutes. Just have a moment where we can all talk about what is, not even questionably, well, for Bill it might be, but for Wick and I, the greatest Cincinnati Red of our lifetime, I think. Bill, you want to go first?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised, disappointed a little bit, but not surprised. But I was really angry with the way the Reds did it. It was a Saturday morning news dump. As they said on West Wing, it's kind of like take out the trash day. All the stuff you don't want anybody to pay any attention to. That's when you do it. But then when you read later that Joey was out of the country, apparently, and they were waiting for him to get back, and they wanted to talk to him and give him a chance to tell his family, that kind of thing. And the fact that and now whether this was Joey being honest or Joey just being a good citizen, he seemed to handle it well. He said, the Reds did what they should have done, and he didn't seem to have any problem with it. If Joey doesn't have a problem with it, I don't think I should have a problem with it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think that Joey would ever handle it any other way than he did with the utmost class. I have a reason to believe that he knew about it several days in advance of the announcement.
I would hope so.
For me, it seemed like they knew this was going to be the case. And I feel like with that said, whether Joey wanted it or not, this could have been handled in a way that paid respects to such a franchise icon, allowed us to come to terms with it during that last home series, which the fans took upon themselves, which was incredible. That was my big grievance. I get it being difficult to find playing time for him. Now, I also am of the opinion that they had the money, pick up the damn option, and he doesn't have a choice. He has to play for the Reds, even if it's in a part-time role. But that's just me being selfish. Wick, you had 2 really, really great articles over at redreporter.com. One right after that last home series, and then another a couple days after the news when you sort of put your thoughts out there. How have you been feeling now that it's been even a few days past that? Like you tell that story so well, how he was part of the crop of players that got you back into baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the selfish part of me coming out here is it's me as my baseball fandom as much as it's about Joey Votto and the Reds themselves is that, it's finality on the fact that the 2010 and 2012 Reds didn't turn into anything. There were 38 guys who played in 2012, 44 guys who played in 2010. None of them are under contract right now. Roldis Chapman's a free agent who will get signed somewhere this winter. And then there's Joey, and that's it. Everybody else is out of baseball at this point. So it calls time on that era of Reds baseball, which, for a time had so much promise. I got into following baseball on the internet in 2006, 2007-ish because those prospects were coming up. And I've been a Reds fan since I was little, but I never followed prospects like that because the Reds hadn't had prospects like that in quite a while. And to be able to not just follow baseball players the way we did when we were kids, when you read a box score and you check in the next day and see how things were, and then you wait 24 hours and do it again and hope somebody writes an article. Joey was part of a crop of players that you could follow every single thing they did every single minute of every day. You could watch every at bat at every single level of the minor leagues. You could see who the Reds were trading for and why they were trading away different players for different positions because they were going to build around these guys. You could watch highlights. You could get interviews, all that stuff. You could consume the way he was part of the Cincinnati Reds for his entire career, and he was really the first player that we got a chance to do that with. And now he's not here anymore. And so much of what Red Reporter is and came up with the fact that it was Joey and Jay and Johnny and Homer and that entire crew that was kind of bringing the Reds back. And he was the last one standing for that. And so for me, that was the selfish reaction to it, which was, oh man, like I lost that connection to how I used to follow baseball before that. And he kind of revolutionized that entire way that we now follow the baseball players that we follow every single day. And so that was tough. And then, it's the second aspect of it was watching the video he filmed in front of the trees and the Adirondack chair and everything else. That was not a polished Joey Votto video. He produces for social media some very polished videos. The whole bus driver thing, the whole shtick when he was doing even several years ago, the Canadian Mountie themed interview with the Movie Network. He's very calculated and orchestrated about a lot of the stuff that he puts out there. You could tell when he was doing that, he knew he had to say something and he didn't have the words to say what I think he really felt, which to me,
he was struggling at times. There was no doubt in that video. He was struggling.
Yeah. And so for me, it's like, yeah, you know the writing's on the wall because of the numbers, both on the back of the baseball card and on the commas on the contract. But for him, it was kind of some finality that I think he hadn't had a chance to really, truly process yet. And so for me, like emotionally, it was like, oh man, like he wanted to come back next year and show that the shoulder and the bicep are 1 year further removed from major surgery. And, on top of that, like he wasn't terrible last year. He slugged .433. He slugged basically what Xander Bogaerts and Teoscar Hernandez slugged last year, and everybody wants to sign Teoscar for 3 years and $30 million. Like he wasn't terrible last year, and we're going to see guys like Kevin Newman or Nick Bartini get plate appearances for the Reds next year. So, there's not an everyday role for Joey Votto, but you still kind of thought, hey, there could have been a way where both sides could have handled this a whole lot better. And you only get one chance to really kind of break away from a Hall of Famer. And I just feel like it could have gone a whole lot better than it did,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm glad you brought up that video he shot, because one of the things that has endeared myself and most fans, I think, to Joey is that he was very closed off, very reserved for the early part of his career, the beginning and the middle of it. the way that he opened up these last few years and let the city, let these fans get to know a side of him. Now, he had to be, just like you said, really calculated in what he did, because that was the only way he was going to be able to get his personality out there. Yeah. It didn't seem natural to him just to go off the cuff like it is for some people. But he wanted to share that side of himself with the fans, with the city of Cincinnati. And you're right. That last little video he sent, it was emotional, and you can't be a fan of this ball club without feeling a little bit of something during that video.
When his approach to the media and approach to the fans changed, and I don't know if one had anything to do with the other, but thinking back my memory, it seemed to have happened about the time his father passed away. Mm-hmm. Is when his demeanor, I don't know, demeanor change is the right word, but when he seemed to be making more of an effort to connect with the fans.
Perspective, I think. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, wearing those emotions on his sleeve a little bit more, and I think that we all certainly appreciated it. Wick, you pointed out something. I was going to say this is my favorite stat that you mentioned, but it's actually my absolute least favorite stat that I've ever heard in my life. You talk about it closing the chapter on that generation of Reds teams, which is, for me, I was 5 years old during the 1990 World Series. I don't really count that. I don't remember a pitch other than what I watched much later. Those were the best Reds teams of my lifetime, that 2010 through 2013 teams, which is not awesome. But we think of the Big Red Machine, 75 and 76 World Series champions. And then 1990, that's when it seems like this big giant gap between success. The 80s were rough for a lot of Reds fans. It was 14 years. We've had that twice and then some since the Reds had any significant playoff success. And we say it on here all the time. Be a fan however you want, but please don't understand why we get so frustrated and why we really, really feel the little things, why we root for the little things, such as a Joey Votto proper send-off. It's because we haven't had the playoff success to lean on. This is the happiness.
And you're talking about success. It wasn't, it was 14 years between division championships, but the 4 years before 1990, they finished second, and we're in the hunt late every year.
Yep.
So those were competitive teams.
I catch flack on Twitter all the time because I have I keep it saved on my desktop, a picture of Buster Posey hitting a very well-timed grand slam and Ryan Hennigan's frustrated reaction in the background. That was the best time in the last 27 years. That was the highlight. They were up 2-0.
Yeah.
And up 3 runs or 2 runs in that game before that swing. That ball had not hit the seats yet. Those runs had not counted. That was the highlight of the last 27 years. Those were the good times. And so to ignore the frustrations of that entire window and still not celebrate the guy who was hands down the best part of that window, it seems a little narrow-sighted by the powers that be. And admittedly, I have no idea how much Joey pushed back on saying anything about don't celebrate me, don't acknowledge it. I'm playing next year. I don't care if it's for you or for anybody else. Screw you guys. I'm signing. He could have been like that. I don't know.
That's a good point.
Still, you think there had to have been a way to handle it a little bit better than the noon kickoffs on Saturday in football country are happening in about 5 minutes. We're going to go ahead and tell everybody Joey Votto's not going to be a Red next year. So it rubbed me the wrong way from a franchise that has rubbed me the wrong way a lot over the last. Well, he got drafted in 2002, and there's been a lot of rubbing the wrong way for the last 21 years.
That's right. Well, this chapter's closed. I hope that they, Nick Kroll did come out and say that the door is not completely closed. He's not closing the door on anything, were his exact words. So there is still a chance. The words he said all around those did not make it seem like there is really a chance. It would have to be one of those nobody wants to sign the guy and he's willing to come back in a bit role. I don't see that happening, but I'm going to hold out a little bit of hope as long as I can. Let's go around real quick and just say off the top of our heads, one or more of your favorite Joey moments on the field. Bill, you want to start?
A couple of things about Joey. One is you said, he's not the best Reds player I've ever seen. he's the best Reds hitter I've ever seen in my lifetime. In my lifetime, Joe, the guys that I remember, Frank Robinson was in my lifetime, but I don't remember seeing him play for the Reds. But Joe, I've never seen a player as good as Joe Morgan was in 75 and 76, bar none.
Listen, it's Adam Dunn's birthday. How dare you?
I also remember the first time I saw Joey play was in Sarasota playing high A ball. I don't even remember what year it was because we used to vacation in Siesta Key, so we used to go to the ball game all the time.
Oh yeah, I forget that he spanned the spring training facility down at Ed Smith. That's right. Yeah.
Oh yeah. What a dump that place was.
I once passed out drunk in the outfield. It was amazing. The seats behind the outfield.
Sometimes I have to tell my Matt Klinker story about Ed Smith when we went down there and saw Matt pitch at Ed Smith Stadium and he got rocked. And I get back to the car. I'm like, I got to text him. I left my phone in the car. And Matt got hit by 3 comebackers in 4 innings.
Oh, no.
And I get to the car and I look at my text message and he goes, and it's got a text from Matt. He said, nothing bruised but my ego. But anyway, my favorite Joey memory is probably – there's so many, but the two that stand out are the home run streak, and then the first at bat this year when he came off the DL.
Yeah.
Those are my two.
If I'm not going to – let recency bias get in the way. Him coming off the deal and hitting that home run was one of the
the ovation he got.
Yeah. One of the most fun, exciting moments of my Reds fandom, which is saying a lot. Wick, what do you got?
I apologize for the blank stare on my face right now, but I switched tabs and I'm trying to make sure I've got what it is I'm trying to say somewhat accurate. And I am, once again, shout out to the guys at Baseball Reference. I am looking through this real quick. I want to say it was the second half of 2016. It was 2015 or 2016 when he just went nuclear in the second half and hit over 400 with a 570 on base percentage. There was an innocuous at bat. I want to say it was the top of the 9th in a game against the Cubs at Wrigley Field. And the Reds were already up 6-2, 7-2, something like that. And he had worked a 3-2 count after being down 0-2 and fouled off a pitch or two. And you could tell he knew exactly what was coming and stepped up in the batter's box, like literally as the pitcher was winding up. This is back when he choked up too. So he's choked up and he literally just like takes a little Hal Morris, like half step up in the batter's box as the pitch is coming and just spanks his classic left center field, half opposite way, home run, 12 rows deep in Wrigley. And you could just see the entire – everybody in the stands just groan. And it was him knowing more than everybody else who was playing the game that day knew and just got himself into that position where he's like, if this guy – if I just get him where he thinks he can sneak this one pitch by me, I'm going to park it as far as I can. And he did it. And like the moment he hit it, it was the most squared up, like – it's almost like he stopped swinging halfway through because he's like, all I got to do, the barrel's going to take care of it. And it was a masterful performance from somebody who at that point in time had better control of not just the strike zone, but he had control of the pitchers. I mean, he knew what they were throwing and where they were going to throw it and what count he was in. And it was the most impressive plate appearance I'd ever watched before in my life. And
one of those chess and checkers things.
Yeah, literally it was chess and checkers. And, speaking of, I don't want to go back to yelling about Joey Votto not being on the 2024 Reds anymore, but you listen to Will Benson talk.
This is a safe space.
You listen to Will Benson talk about his approach at the plate and what Joey did for him, talking about that. And the two of them played chess against each other. They still play chess against each other. It's a mindset about how you approach a one-on-one pitcher versus batter thing, which there's no other professional sport that's like that except tennis.
That's why baseball's the best. Every single moment is a mini battle between you and the other person. Every single moment. Tennis
is the only other one where how the other person hits the ball towards you dictates what you can do. And he revolutionized the way I think about the game because I've never seen somebody. I'm sure other players have thought the way that he did, but none of them were good enough to actually act on it the way that he did also. And it was mind control. And that will forever go down as my favorite Joey Votto moment.
100%. I truly hope that when he eventually does retire, and I'm here for that not being for several years. I would love to see him go be awesome for somebody for a couple more, that we start getting those stories And a few of them have leaked out over the years, but a few of those stories from the pitchers, what it was like to face Joey Votto, what preparing for him in his prime was like, and the fear that he instilled, just because, you get down, there's guys that pitchers look at him and they're like, I know he can't hit my curveball. I know he can't hit my slider. If I pitch him up and in with the fast stuff, he's got no chance. 7, 8, and 9 hitters with great pitchers. Like, I can take it easy, still going to get these guys out. Joey Votto had to be one of the toughest outs in the history of Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And man, I'm going to miss that guy. Wick, you brought up that home run against the Cubs, which is one of 50 that he hit against the Cubs.
Is that all?
An obscene number of home runs against one team. A couple that I want to throw out. I forgot about this one until I was doing a little research. The Bird Grand Slam, when he hit a grand slam against the Tigers, Matthew Boyd, after a bird landed about 10 feet in front of him at home plate. Just go back and find some video on that one. The bird just lands on the ground. He says, "Screw it, I'm gonna hit a grand slam. It's fine." And then there was June 9th, 2015, when he hit 3 home runs on 3 consecutive pitches. If ever you needed evidence of what being in the zone looks like, go back and check that out. And then finally, what in my opinion is probably the most famous, the May 13th, 2012, when he hit 3 home runs and a walk-off grand slam on Mother's Day.
Mother's Day, yeah.
The only time, as far as I could find in Major League history, that a 3-homer game has ended with a grand slam. So we could probably, and maybe we should, once we have Chad back and like to get Carlos on here, just have an entire Joey Votto appreciation podcast. You guys please both join. We'll get Jason Linden back in the fold.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
And it's I'm still not quite over. I'm wearing my Appreciate 19 t-shirt. But I've been wearing it a lot more often, sleep in it, wear it to work, start to stink a little bit. Got fired today, no big deal.
Do you know what Joey's stat line was with runners in scoring position?
First career?
I gave this a couple weeks ago when I was on with Chad. With runners in scoring position, 321, 468, 574.
So 47% of the time, 47% of the time when he walked to the plate with a runner in scoring position, he did not make an out in a game that requires the other team to get 27 outs. That's
46% of the time.
And former broadcasters who like to yell at me on Twitter.
Yeah.
Former broadcasters that like to yell at me on Twitter would have said that he's not clutch.
Third runner on third with 2 out, 255, 441, 531.
Jesus. Joey, we're going to miss you, man. Thank you for everything he did over the years. I can't imagine he listens to this podcast, but if you happen to come across it,
hey, he's got more free time now than he otherwise would. Maybe he does.
And Joey, if you're ever listening, you're welcome to come on anytime you would like.
Anytime you want, you can have the show if you want to. Just give it to you.
We will be at your convenience to do this.
100%. Appreciate.
Like Hacksaw Jim Duggan running in from the rafters for WrestleMania. I was like, are you guys buzzing Joey in right now? What's going on?
Yeah, we'll
that'd have been cool.
Save that for another off-season podcast. All right. So I guess there's a few other things we can touch on. Free agency's firmly underway. The GM meetings are going on right now. There's been a little bit of scuttlebutt from that side of the coin. It seems like the Reds, much like every other team in Major League Baseball, wants more pitching. So if you thought the Reds were just going to go and have their pick of the litter with the top free agent arms, doesn't seem to be the case. I think I saw that 21 other clubs are looking for mid-rotation or better starting pitching. So good luck out there. For me, the biggest news out of free agency so far, out of the GM meetings, is that apparently there's like a stomach bug going around and they had to shut it down a day early because everybody had the
I won't lie. When you started with Scuttlebutt, I was wondering where you were going with that.
there was some butt scuttling at the GM meeting.
Yeah.
It's some bad oysters at the bar, and everybody came down with a stomach flu.
I sort of throw it out there as a PSA. After we've come out the other end of this whole COVID thing, wash your hands, people. Just wash your hands.
Wash your hands. Yes. Oh.
So as we're getting on this, I like baseball how it's different. Like if you go to NBA free agency, they're announcing things at midnight, like as soon as they can. Moves are being made. Baseball takes a little bit longer. So is there anyone, Wick, that you would like the Reds to target? I know it's a difficult question to answer considering that everybody's going for the same thing, but
that's the thing. And I started kind of parsing back through things and looking at the bigger picture. This is where I think the Nick Krall sustainability talk really gets tested, because they had great pitching and now they've got great position prospects flush. It's what happens when you trade great pitching. They're gonna have 3 guys who are gonna finish in the top 8 of the AL Cy Young voting. I hope you have good guys you traded them for, but now you need 3 guys who can finish in the top 8 of the Cy Young voting. So if you can't go buy those guys, you have to find those guys. And can they draft and develop them? Are we going to be able to see Connor Phillips and Chase Petty emerge this year and be those guys? Can Lyon Richardson stay healthy enough to be that wild card arm that might be the next guy that we've all overlooked and be Tyler Mahle post Tyler Mahle? And the Lyon Richardson, Tyler Mahle comp kind of is what sparked this, because the Reds had great pitching for several years. They really had great pitching for several years. Mahle was the 7th round pick. Sonny Gray, the Yankees gave away because he was so bad. Luis Castillo got given to the Reds for Dan Straley, who got given to the Reds because he wasn't very good.
I missed the Dan Straley era.
They found guys. Like they found and developed pitchers, and that's where Derek Johnson was so good for so long. Maybe, for as much as I want them to go spend money and say, we're not going to risk this not working, we're going to spend 3 years and $66 million and bring Sonny Gray back, I would love that. But are we going to have to accept and trust the process a little bit more than I think we want to after watching everything else they didn't do this year, and say, James Paxton's an extra year removed from Tommy John surgery? Is he the guy who might be a lot better next year than he was this year, and get him on a 1-year deal and hope it pays off? Those kind of things, when you see the names of the teams that are super interested. I mean, the Cardinals came out the day but before the World Series saying, we're getting 3 starting pitchers next year. And this is unacceptable performance for us the way this year went. When you've got that kind of competition in the market for exactly what it is you need, you can't just throw money at the problem, and you've got to find an angle. And so I'm prepping myself for them leaning into finding somebody who's a little bit dusty and dusting them off, and hoping one of these guys that are younger that we got a little glimpse of this past year can step up, because I think that's the route they're going to go with the pitching. And is it sexy? It's not very sexy. It's going to be even less sexy if Sonny signs with St. Louis. But that's where I'm kind of parked at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Reds have 5 names for their assuming health opening day starting rotation, but the average number of starting pitchers that got significant time for the Major League Ball Cups last year was 10. So you have to have that depth. They lost a little bit of depth that we'll talk about here in a bit, but we can all agree that the Reds need to add some arms in some fashion, whether it's trade or free agency. Bill, what other position groups would you like to see the Reds make a splash in?
Well, if they do bring in some pitchers, it's going to push some guys that have been in the rotation into the bullpen, and that'll improve the bullpen.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
And then they need some help in the outfield, or else they're going to move somebody from the infield to the outfield, and probably a little bit of both. I think would probably be what they'd like to do. I've been looking at some of the the online people where they say what the Reds need. I saw a couple of them said the Reds need catching help, and I don't. I mean, if somebody threw a deal at him that was a good deal, I don't have any problem with it. But I don't like Stevenson defensively as a catcher. But I think you're not going to have an all-star at all 8 positions. You're just not. Of their needs, catcher would be way down the list for me.
I definitely agree with that.
I will say in my search for fun Joey Votto stats, Joey Votto had a higher weighted on-base average last year than JT Realmuto. Like, if one of the best catchers,
but he's cooked, Wick.
If one of the best catchers out there in such a position that is so beaten down couldn't even hit Votto with that metric, which is a very compiled metric that is park adjusted, everything else. Like, yeah, what are you chasing behind the plate? There just aren't catchers. You got to catch, pun intended, you got to catch a catcher healthy and in the right year to get
wasn't Joey drafted as a catcher? Didn't Joey catch a little bit? No. See, we'll bring Joey back.
Bring him back.
We got to get some Joey Votto audition videos this offseason. Auditioning for a job, doing the Rocky run and the Rocky workout and flipping tires in the snow, catching again. This is an entire Joey. If you're listening to the Riverfront podcast, which you should be, this is how you gain another 1 million followers on social media. You got to put in the work, buddy.
With the log,
classic 80s movie training montage.
Yeah. Well, put it this way: if he's healthy, it's his legs are healthy. It's his shoulder, the bicep, and everything else. The legs are healthy. Squat and catch, man. There's a market.
I love this. And lost in the whole Joey Votto's option not getting picked up news was that they also declined the option on Curt Casale. So now the Reds only have 2 catchers, and that is one too few for a certain vintage of Reds fan.
I would not be surprised if Curt Casale is on the pitching staff by the coaching staff on the pitching
I wouldn't
side,
be surprised if he's on the pitching staff.
It might be the pitching staff. I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the coaching staff for the pitchers by the end of this offseason. A Vandy guy who worked with Derek Johnson extensively during their time there. Big reason why Sonny agreed to sign the extension with the Reds when Kirk got signed. A tremendous mind in the game. And, reading that the Phillies had interest in Sonny because Caleb Cottom was on the pitching staff at Vandy with Sonny as well, and the former assistant pitching coach with the Phillies. That era of Vandy boy product, proud alum. I was there before they were. I'm old, but that they are infiltrating the entire coaching system in Major League Baseball. And if the Reds can keep him around for any role next year, I think it's a big perk for how they're going to be able to recruit and develop players. So.
I do feel like Vandy leans into that more than just about any other school when it comes to their baseball program. Their players like each other and their coaches.
They didn't when I was there. They happened right after I graduated, so I missed it. But I've been a fan of what they've done since then.
Well, since Chad's not here, I will say screw Vanderbilt for beating UVA in the College World Series. UVA got their payback, though. The only other news I think is worth talking about, at least just for a second, is that John Morrissey came out with a tweet. He is a known prolific tweeter in the offseason that Jonathan India is a name on a lot of GM's mouse, that a lot of teams are calling about Jonathan India. The Reds seem not to be super motivated to lose Jonathan India, which could be accurate or could be lip service because you don't want to, tick off the loudest voice in the clubhouse. For me, it just seems like if you're going to say out loud that you don't have a spot for Joey Votto on your team, do you have a spot for Jonathan India? I mean, he is worse at baseball than all of these young guys that we're so high on. I like Jonathan India. I'm a pro Jonathan India baseball fan. I love having him in a Reds uniform. I love his intangibles. I love what he does, what he seems to do in the clubhouse. I think if there's an opportunity to package him with a prospect for an impactful player, it needs to be strongly considered. Bill, any thoughts on Jonathan India and his role with the 2024 Reds?
My concern is, and this has been my concern since they didn't trade him at the trade deadline when there were so many rumors flying around that, is that the Reds severely overvalue Jonathan India. And that's my biggest concern. If he's here, that's fine. That means they couldn't get anybody better for him. But if he's here because the Reds are overvaluing what he brings to the ball club, then that's not a good thing, and that would concern me.
Yeah, I think that he is going to have to take a lot of reps at DH, and he's not a great hitter, which is tough. They would definitely be selling low if they got rid of Jonathan India right now, so maybe they're waiting for him to come back, look real good for a month or two and try to find something. Or maybe there's something going on behind the scenes that makes them really want to keep him around. I don't know. Wick, what do you think?
For reference, Jonathan India last year, 100 even OPS plus, Joey Votto, 99 OPS plus. So this is where we are offensively between these two guys who are not very good defenders. The way I look at it is this. The Reds need somebody who can hit right-handed and play corner outfield. They have Nick Senzel on that role right now. Nick Senzel hit left-handed pitching very well last year. Nick Senzel staying healthy is a problem. Jonathan India staying healthy has been a problem the last years as well. One's got 3 years of team control and one's got less than that. If you're looking to move on from somebody and looking to make the best team this year and potentially get some more value out of somebody who you already invested a lot of money into sign as the 5th overall pick a couple years ago, I asked Jonathan India to start playing some corner outfield. Mm-hmm. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't do that. You asked Spencer Steer immediately. You told Nick Senzel to go play center field. I don't see why telling him that you're good enough to be a big leaguer, and when you're healthy, you're pretty good. We need you to hit left-handed pitching, which you've done at times. Play left field, play right field, and you're going to be in the lineup, and you're going to get plenty of plate appearances. And odds are, if he stays healthy, he's going to be a better trade chip if that's what you want to do with him at the midpoint of this year or the end of next year. And that's where you go. And I think he's a better player than Nick Senzel is, and a player who can replicate what Nick Senzel is projected to be in that role right now. I don't know why you just that's what you do. And you say, this is how you're going to get in the lineup every day. And if you're hitting well, it'll work itself out. I mean, let's be honest. Noelvi Marte was never supposed to be part of the 2023 Reds. He came up because India was hurt. Votto was hurt. McLean was hurt. Jake Fraley was hurt. The injuries happen. You need the depth. You can't just trade everybody because there might be somebody a little bit better at their job. You got to find ways to build the depth on the roster. Mm-hmm. For Jonathan India specifically, I think both with the Reds and going forward, if you can show he can play corner outfield here and there, he's got a lot more value personally as well. And that's the point I wanted you to make, not just as a trade chip for the Reds, but in his own free agency, in arbitration. He's going to be able to command more. That's a great point. 100%. And you do that, you get yourself in the lineup more. The more you're in the lineup, the more bases you steal, the more home runs you get, even if your rate stats don't improve tremendously. Those are the kind of things that arbitration values. It literally is, it's a win-win for both sides. I think the Reds, unless they're willing to go out and overpay for a right-handed hitter who plays exclusively outfield, and there's not a lot of those guys. I mentioned Teoscar Hernandez, Tommy Pham. Are you going to bring Tommy Pham back after a great postseason? Who's 36 now, I think. To me, it seems like you've got the ability to build out the roster you've currently got with a guy who's a key piece, fan favorite. And the fact that you've done it with Steer, you did it with Jose Barrero, you did it with Nick Senzel, you've done it with infielders before. Why not try that with him? And if he pushes back on it, then you learn a lot about him, whatever. But it just seems to me like there's a very easy way to solve this question up front, and you sort it out and you go with it.
Yeah. So. Couldn't agree more. I love having that guy on this team. I love watching him play. I love his energy. Also shouts to him and his lovely wife. They have a kid on the way, announced that recently. So that's awesome too. You mentioned a name right there, Noelvi Marte. And I don't think that we've spent enough time on this podcast talking about that young fella. We love some Matt McLean and some CES and Spencer Steer and Ellie De La Cruz, but I'm not going to lie. I think there's a chance that Noelvi Marte ends up the best of the bunch. I'm not saying that's where I put all my money, but I think there's a realistic chance. That young fella impressed me so much in his brief cup of coffee last year. All right, so I guess we should get to some news of the week. We've already touched on a couple things here. Kirk Casale's option declined. The saddest news of all, I can't believe they didn't stop the press. I hope when this guy ends up coming back and pitching in Great American Ballpark one day, they have a half-inning long montage playing on the Jumbotron. The Ricky Karcher era has ended, at least for now. Young Ricky Karcher has elected free agency. Still a chance the Reds could get him back, but oh man, has there ever been a player to play less time for the Cincinnati Reds that had a bigger impact? I says no.
I think there should be a song. There should be a song, The Legend of Ricky Karcher.
The Legend of Ricky Karcher, which the song might be longer than his career as a Red, but yeah.
Right.
I think Bill and I need to split a 12-pack of beers and write that song one night.
I would love to have Ricky Karcher mic'd up in a Jim Day role in the dugout. Or in the bullpen. Can we get him just give him a microphone and just hang out in the bullpen? I would love that. Oh my God, man,
it's too good. Happy trails, Ricky Karcher. Do awesome somewhere. We're gonna miss you. We will always look back fondly on the Ricky Karcher era. The only other notable name, in my opinion, was Ben Lively. Did the same. I loved what that dude did for the Reds this year. Once again, the Reds seem to do this so many times, asking him to do more than his baseball card kind of says that he should be doing. I would love to have him as only rotation depth and a long reliever, even though the long reliever might be dead. I'm personally going to miss Ben Lively. Wick, you got any Ben Lively thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, up until the point where I get what he gave up 12 earned runs, 11, 13. The one game where they begged him to just stay out there and just get shelled. And he went on the injury list immediately afterwards with a bicep strain or whatever it was. Up until that point, it's on the internet somewhere. I was talking about him for comeback player of the year.
Yeah.
Because that's how good he was through 10, 11 starts to start the season. He is what he is. He's going to throw 90 to 92, and he's going to have to hit his spots and be right on every single day. But he's a guy who seems determined to want to do that after traveling all over the world to play. And at 31, 32, whatever he is now, I was impressed with what he put forth this year. And not the kind of guy that you want to have to depend on.
No.
But if you turn to him, you damn well know he's going to take the ball and give you everything he's got. And that's got value in my mind. So I think he'll look back in the big leagues this year with somebody. Sure. I don't know who it's going to be, but somebody's going to get something out of him if they need it. Yeah,
I'd love to see him be one of those guys like Bill mentioned. Move him to the bullpen full time and see if he can carve out a role there. Other than that, back to Joey for one quick thing. It came out that Toronto came out and said unequivocally they're interested. Not saying they're going to offer him anything, but they are kicking the tires and they're going to be in touch with him. They also said very politely, I thought, they're like, we're going to give him a few days. We know this must be emotional. We're going to let him process, but we're keeping our eye on Joey Votto, a bit of a homecoming in Toronto. Bill, would Toronto be your number one choice for which team Joey signs with post-Reds?
I'll be surprised if it's anybody else.
Ooh, okay. Go on that.
I think they want to bring him home, and I think he'll go.
That would be – I mean, I would love it because they're at least trying to contend next year. And my biggest fear is that he goes and toils away for, the Royals or somebody like that. I want to see him go to a contender. I want to see him have a chance.
I jumped on ESPN radio election in Kentucky this morning, and
that's pretty cool.
There was
sweet flex.
I'm on there every now and then. I haven't been on it anywhere in forever because the baby and everything else. But then back-to-back talking spots today. So
back-to-back children and back-to-back talking spots.
Back-to-back children talking spots, and I sound like I brought home the latest cold from the Montessori school, which I did. So it's been fun to yap as much as I can today. I'm going to lose my voice. But what I said was I wouldn't be surprised. I see two scenarios for Joey. Either he signs in like a week and it's with Toronto, or he might not sign until March or maybe even April.
A la Matt Carpenter.
Who
also called Joey to learn how to reapproach hitting.
Resuscitated his career to the tune of however many dollars he's making after picking up his option after a terrible year with San Diego this year. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Joey, who's getting an offseason to be able to hit again, he couldn't hit all offseason last year. He was rehabbing. He was rehabbing 2 surgeries last year, and it took him into the season this year. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him, if it's not Toronto early, wait and impress somebody and wait for the right spot and pop up again spring training-ish, depending on what happens with whatever inevitable injury happens to a team somewhere. Because I agree. I think he wants to play, but I don't think he's going to end up in Kansas City. I don't think he's going to pop up with a team that's not going anywhere this year just to log 450 plate appearances. And it's not about the money, obviously. It's about the opportunity. And I think Toronto presents him with that opportunity because that's a really good young club that really needs to win this year before they blow it up because there's a lot of players that are getting close to free agency. But I could totally see him waiting for the opportunity come spring and see, suddenly now you need a left-handed bat who looks a lot healthier than he did last year and make that call as well, because that's the key in all this to me. Age for me with Joey doesn't – he's older now, but it's health more than it's age because – he hit the crap out of the ball when he was healthy last year. I think he can still do that. He still knows what pitch is coming more often than not. And even if you have to guess a little bit, he's still good enough to where he can put a lot of bat on the ball. He's at 231 ISO last year. He just needs to show he's healthy and needs to find the right opportunity.
Yeah.
Toronto would be cool, no doubt about it. But yeah, I hope that'd be a great landing spot, because there are a lot of the spots that it'd be really frustrating if Joey's on their roster.
I don't want to see Joey in a Cub uniform or a Cardinal uniform.
Or Brewer uniform.
Yeah.
Brewers could use a first baseman right now.
I feel like if he signs for another NL Central team, then that is a very silent screw you to
one of these,
how the Reds,
Reds
treat him. And Wick, I hope you're right, and I hope he does. If he has to wait, I prefer he doesn't have to wait. I'd like to see him in a lineup on opening day somewhere.
I will say also, if he wants to sign for like $5 million and play for the Rockies 600 times next year, I'll roll down to the ballpark and watch him play.
Yeah, we're waiting to figure out where my wife matches residency, so where we're going to end up living for the next several years. I'm like, can we wait and see where Joey signs before you start making these things?
Nothing like having your priorities in order there, Nate.
That's it. I'm going to be tuning in to whatever to the games, whatever city he's playing in, and I'd ask him very politely, don't make me watch the Royals. I don't want to do that. Moving on a little bit, we got the Rookie of the Year race went down, and neither Spencer Steer or Matt McLain got any nods. I get the Matt McLain side of things because he came up late and then missed time late. He just maybe didn't play enough games. If you want to hold that against him, I'm not going to blame you. Spencer Steer not making the final three was as legitimate of a snub as you can get. Typically we talk about snubs, talk about all-star games, and there's so many deserving players that either nobody gets snubbed or 14 people got snubbed, depending on how you want to look at it. This wasn't that. James Outman got in over Spencer Steer. His name is literally Outman. Okay, I'll see myself out. Sorry, that was terrible. Yeah, it was kind of garbage. I had some quick stats here, real quick. Outman hit 248 with an OPS of 790. Spencer Steer 271, OPS 820. Both players had 23 home runs, 3 triples, and 68 walks, which is kind of wild. Steer had more RBIs, 16 more RBIs. He had 19 more or 21 more doubles. He had 59 more total bases, 38 more hits. Outman had 42 more strikeouts, and he's not a pitcher, so that's not good. And I don't know. I don't know what we're doing. Call it market size.
And Steer was a Swiss Army knife. I mean, he played everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Steer, man, I love that guy so much. He's my answer to it. We all keep saying the Reds need a right-handed outfield bat. Do we?
Yeah.
Put him out there.
He unlocks the entire roster. He really is the skeleton key that unlocks the entire roster if he can do everything he did last year and maybe play just a little bit better defense in each of those spots, which admittedly it's a lot to ask when you got a guy who's carrying 5 gloves in his bag and you got to be good at all of those spots. Oftentimes using 3 of them in the same game. But yeah, Spencer Steer had a tremendous rookie year. I will never not think that, regardless of how this voting turned out. I mean, Corbin Carroll's the winner and deserving winner, but Spencer Steer had a tremendous rookie year and deserved to have a little bit more fanfare, I think, because that's the thing about it is that, like, you look up at all the rookies the Reds brought up. I don't even know how many rookies played for the Reds this year. I don't even remember.
97, I think.
Yeah,
I thought it was 102, but I'll
yeah. Like, of all, he was the best of all. He was the best of all of them, top to bottom, year round. Defensive metrics give Matt McLain a little bit of an edge, but Spencer Steer was there from day one till the end of the year and produced not just good for a rookie numbers, but good for anybody numbers.
Good for a Major League Baseball player.
Yeah. He was the rock of the entire rookie class of the Reds, and this is the Reds class that's going to go down as being known as being rookies this year. So yeah, props to Spencer Steer for a hell of a year. How about that? He deserves that.
Shouts to Fangraphs for somehow calling that last offseason, and I thought it was ridiculous. So it shows lesson as always. I'm an idiot. Steer also is the Reds' only Silver Slugger finalist. Was that you that tweeted something about Silver Sluggers today?
Joey Votto never won a Silver Slugger award, so I don't care about the word anymore. Yeah.
Yep. Silver Slugger is done.
Did Jay Bruce win 2? I think Jay Bruce might
That's
have
a good
won
question.
too. And I mean, so it is what it is. But yeah.
Yeah. So the Reds not getting a lot of love from the media of late. They also signed somebody named Jacob Heatherly. I have no comments on their signing of Jacob Heatherly because I didn't know who that was until I got on like Red Leg Nation or MLB Trade Rumors or something. So I hope he's awesome. Do y'all have any Jacob Heatherly thoughts?
He was a Red, wasn't he?
He was drafted by the Reds, yeah.
Yeah.
He was a 3rd-round pick in 2017.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, he was a Red. Now he's back.
Jacob Heatherly, we missed you. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Before I got one more piece of news before we get to that, Craig Counsell making a bit of a lateral move, a lateral raise, as I call it in the show notes, because that's a weightlifting joke for those out there. Going from the Brewers to the Cubs, getting a $40 million deal. I saw people online laughing. It's like, Craig Counsell's getting paid more than these 7 players for the Reds next year. What a joke. Who cares? I don't know. I wish he was not going to be in the NL Central next year, but he is. We got to deal with him with another franchise. So, worst of luck to you, Craig Counsell.
Only thing I took away from that is that the Cubs are going to spend money.
They are going for it. Shortlisting for everybody.
Cubs are going to spend money. Cardinals want 3 pitchers. Brewers are the Brewers. Like, buckle up. It's going to be a busy offseason in the National League Central, and if that's the case, well, you better be busy.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and I mentioned this to Chad a couple of weeks ago when I was on as we were signing off. Everybody is assuming that all of these young players are going to get better, and they're not all going to get better. Well,
Jonathan India didn't get better.
We hope they do. We hope they do. But there's a couple of these guys that, what you saw this year was what they're going to be. And if the Reds think that they can compete in this division that's going to spend a buttload of money, just with what they're going to develop inside and assume that guys are going to get to the major league level and continue to get better, that's not going to happen. Not all of them.
Yeah, there's a timeline in this multiverse where the Reds are a bottom 2 team in the NL Central next year. I don't expect that to happen, but it's not outside of the realm of possibility.
Right.
Jonathan India and Nick Lodolo had great rookie years and hadn't gotten better since then. So, I hope.
A scenario could play out where a lot of Reds fans are going to see why we were so miffed with their decision-making at the trade deadline.
You talk about the team that was in first place in 9 games over 500 on August 1st and Sam Moll.
That's the team. That is the team. The same team that needed all of these same positions filled last offseason.
Yep.
And started Luke Weaver a ton. But we're trying to have a good time here, so we're going to move on a little bit. Bill, I want to give you this one. Last thing before we get to some viewer mail. Speaking of players that may not play as well next year, that weirdo Gordo, old Wittenheimer, Rosenbagger, whatever his name is, for the Cincinnati Enquirer came out with an article saying that perhaps Ellie De La Cruz should start 2024 in AAA. Billy,
I don't know.
on that?
Did he say he should or did he say he might?
I think he was saying that there could be an argument that he should.
Yeah. It's just nonsense. If you believe that this team's going to get better with these younger players, what does he have left to prove at AAA?
Yeah, I thought it was nonsense. I will say shout out to Gordo for I don't know him like that. I hope everybody calls him Gordo, or I'm just a b-hole.
I can't imagine they don't.
He was very much on team pick up Joey's option, so I'll always give Gordon a little love for that. But the guy also still hosts a Cubs podcast while being the Reds beat writer. So whatever, Gordo.
And I will say this: at the tail end of the season, the last quarter of the season, I got frustrated with Ellie too, especially defensively. He looked like he wasn't concentrating. To me, just fundamental mistakes that he was making. To me, you shouldn't be making at a big league level. And as much as Barry Larkin drives me crazy listening to him announce a ball game, he knows how to play shortstop. Yeah, and he was pointing out, things that Ellie were fundamental things that Ellie was doing at shortstop. That now I wonder if he ever said anything to him, other than during the broadcast. But Ellie's got things to prove, as all these young guys do. But Ellie maybe more than most because he came up and played so well early.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to see. Hopefully he learns and improves and gets better. And because when he's Ellie, he's playing a different game than a lot of these other guys are.
100%. And there were a lot of things that were trending in the right direction. That last bit of the season last year, his swing strike rate was way down. His walk rate was way up. Like things were going in the right direction. So I'm not worried about Ellie De La Cruz. You shouldn't be either, Gordo.
Yeah, he's got the ability to be one of the best base runners in baseball and should be a plus defender. You live with that through the slumps and let him grow, and you let him grow at the big league level. That's how it is.
Yep. It's important to keep in mind that he is only 12 years old. He was 11 last season. He'll be 12 in 2024.
He had to get a hall pass so he could come to the ballpark.
No post-game beers for Ellie. Keep it easy. Take it easy on him in the World Series celebration.
No Wade Boggs. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, let's get some viewer mail questions. As always, these come from our friends and family over at patreon.com/riverfrontcincy, where you too can join the family. Our first question comes from Kyle Kapler. Kyle asks, how insane do you have to be to think the Reds will actually spend real money this offseason? Also, this is a Wick question. What are your thoughts on banana peppers as a topping on pizza? Wick, you are the resident pizza aficionado, so you can up on this one.
If it was up to me, my go-to pizza would be pepperoni and banana peppers. It's two toppings. I feel like if you go beyond two toppings, you end up not being able to taste any of the toppings. You just get a mush. That means it can't taste good, but you don't get the individual flavors.
You get a limp. You get a limp slice too. Nobody wants a limp slice.
No limp slice. Pepperoni banana peppers is my go-to pizza. I love it. Yes. So awesome. I zoned out for the entire first part of the question. I heard banana peppers and got antsy. So
that was it. Well, Wick, you actually already gave your opinion on the first half of that question earlier when you said you're not really expecting the Reds to go crazy in free agency.
I think they'll spend. I mean, I think they'll spend. I wouldn't be surprised if we see an extension for somebody also. Yeah. I think they're willing to commit money. I just don't know if it's going to be full on in free agency again. I could see them doing maybe a Jordan Hicks in free agency.
I would love it. I would love it. They need power arms.
You go to a couple years for a reliever. Yeah, I could see them do that. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with James Paxton or Wade Miley level free agent, somebody who's good, but not the top tier, but you're hoping for the best out of them when you get them. They'll spend some money. I don't think Hunter Green will be the highest paid player on the team next year. But I don't anticipate them doing a ton. I think they'll do a little bit more than Will Myers, a little bit more than Tommy Pham, but I'm tempering my expectations. I think they have committed publicly, privately, they've committed everywhere they possibly could since the last trade deadline that they're going to roll with this group. I think they're going to roll with this group.
Yeah. From a mental health standpoint, tempering your expectations is probably the right move. Bill, any thoughts on Reds spending habits or banana peppers?
Do they still owe Junior money?
This is the last year.
Yeah.
2024 is the final year of Junior's contract.
He may be the highest paid player on the team.
I have joked before that I hope that they give him a better send-off when his contract ends than they gave Joey when his contract ended. But yes.
Here's my question to you guys. Will the Reds contract or team budget or salary number be as high as it was in 2021?
No.
I don't think so.
I don't think it's going to be very close. I think they could. I mean,
you think they'll hit 100? You think they'll hit 100 million?
No, I don't.
I think they'll be about 80, 85, somewhere around there.
That's where my head was. Yeah. Which means they're going to make some moves because I think after arbitration and Hunter's contract, they're expected to only be at about 40, give or take. So that would mean something. I expect them to make one splash. I don't know what that's going to look like, who that's going to be. It could even be a trade. And I see them making a lot of moves around the edges, a lot of bullpen stuff, a lot of things that I mentioned this in our Slack channel earlier today. I think a lot of this could also be job security for Nick Krall. Like he knows that if he just builds from within, he gets a lot longer of a rope. You go out there and make a bunch of splashy free agent signings and they don't work out. That's a recipe for getting fired. And he's going to be in this position as long as he wants to, as long as he keeps payroll low.
So you don't think they'll bring Mike Moustakas back on a new deal?
I heard that they might start paying Bobby Bonilla after the Griffey contract is off the books.
I think they're at $13.25 million this year for Will Myers, Joey Votto, and Mike Moustakas' buyout and Kirk Casale's buyout. So you factor that into the payroll, which I'm sure they will. And you're at $53-ish million. I think if they get all the guys that are the top on their list, they'd be about an $85 to $90 million payroll. I think that's what they want to do. But I don't think they're going to stretch past that to get the top guys on their list. And given them how much we've talked about how every other team in baseball wants starting pitching, if they're not going to be the one guy who, the mystery team that comes in and swoops and gets the guy for the right number, they think, if they settle for second options a couple places, which it might still work out, I see them being no more than a $75-80 million team.
Yeah.
So
So Kyle,
anybody know what Baltimore's was this year?
Voldemort,
Yeah, what was Voldemort?
the Dark Lord.
They had Kyle Gibson starting opening day, I believe. I don't think it was a whole lot more than that. I mean, with that and all the other pre-arb guys they had rolled out, I mean, they didn't have hardly any money on the books this year.
I don't like talking about the Baltimore situation because they were really, really good last year and also didn't spend much money. So I don't want the Reds to do that. So I don't like to remind myself.
Therein lies our concern.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Kyle, to answer your question, we love banana peppers on pizza. Next question comes from Jordan Salisbury. Jordan says, gentlemen, he actually had that singular, so I assume he's talking about Bill. I don't have anything but disappointment for how Krall handled the Joey Votto interview, talking about how the Reds had no playing time to give him. I'm beside myself with how they are treating the best Cincinnati of my lifetime. You're seriously going to give Senzel and Barrero at bats over this Hall of Famer. Hashtag pathetic. Hashtag spend some money. I almost read that as hashtag spend so me money. I'm glad I corrected that last second. We don't need to go too heavy into this. We spent the first 30 minutes of this episode going pretty heavy into that. Yeah, I get the decision not to pick up the option. I disagree with it, but I totally get it. But I hate the unceremonious nature of our goodbye to Joey Votto. Didn't even have a chance to get on and do an emergency podcast with our families at 11:30 a.m. on a freaking Saturday.
But I do want to say this though, and everybody, he talks about Senzel and Barrero, but Joey's not competing with Senzel and Barrero for at bats because they don't play the same position. Joey's not going to go to the outfield, and Senzel's not going to play first base, and neither is Barrero unless it's an emergency. Maybe DH once in a while, they'd be competing. So I don't think those are fair comparisons.
I think he only – yeah, I agree. But I think he only brought up Barrero because Barrero's out of options. So he's going to be on the 26-man at the beginning of the season. And they're going to see if they get something.
Barrero will not be here on opening day. He will not be a Cincinnati.
I hope that's because he has an awesome spring training and they trade him for somebody. But I'm also Team Barrero. I want this guy to go out and rake. What if he's a corner outfielder of the future? He's a handsome guy, though, Jose Barrero. But, yeah. Jordan, we're upset about the Joey situation as well. Next question comes from Scott Bowman. He says, after the quote-unquote we don't have enough innings comments in regards to Joey Votto, why do the pundits assume that same Krall logic won't apply to a frontline starting pitcher? I fear the Reds will do very little this offseason. Thoughts? I thought this was a good question because you look at the Reds infield and say we don't have enough innings for Joey Votto. You're like, okay, well, I get it. There's a lot of good infielders. There's people that play his position, and he's not very versatile. The Reds could use that same logic by saying we have Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo and Graham Ashcraft and Brandon Williamson and Andrew Abbott. There's not enough innings. Why would we go out and get a front-line starter? I think that's nonsense. I think we said it earlier. You need at least 10 guys. The average major league club did. And how good would this team be if the Brandon Williamsons and my Lord and Savior Graham Ashcraft had to go to the bullpen because there were dudes that were just way better than them starting?
Yeah, I mean it was the same thing they did last year. They
Mm-hmm.
they signed Luke Weaver for $2 million, who'd been a reliever for 3 years and had never pitched more than 120 innings, and that was 5 years ago with St. Louis.
I'm gonna start treating Luke Weaver like Voldemort. Don't say his name out loud. And show back up.
And they banked on Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Graham Ashcraft, all of whom spent time on the 60-day injured list, I believe. Yeah, I mean, if that's what you want to do, and you say we're not going to say we have a 6-man rotation, but you're effectively going to have a 10-man rotation because Connor Phillips is going to cycle through and Brandon Williamson is going to cycle through and all that. Like, okay, more power to you. Like, Tampa keeps trying it, and it gets them some places, and it hasn't gotten them to the mountaintop yet. Whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, if that's the kind of churn that you think is going to be the way you do it, doubling down on it for a second consecutive year after it blew up in your face last year that's a thing. We'll see. But for me, I think you've got to just look at just the total number of innings it takes to get through a 162 game season and know you've got to have 1 or 2 rocks you can pencil in to take it on the chin. Otherwise, you end up with what happened to Ben Lively, who also ended up on the injuries list because you didn't have anybody else to turn to, and you trusted him to get just shellacked, and he got hurt in the process. Like, it just, you gotta do better than that. You have to do better than that, you know?
Last season, the Reds had 0 starters who have ever made 30 starts in a major league season. And of all of their starters last year, only Graham Ashcraft has ever made 25. Go get some arms.
Yeah, get some arms.
Joe Farsing's up next. Joe, host of the Bengals show here at the Riverfront, says Taylor Lautner was named as People Magazine's sexiest podcaster. I have no question. I'm just outraged at the disrespect shown towards us here at the Riverfront. You know what? I don't personally feel slighted, but I feel like you should, Bill.
I don't need the notoriety, magazine covers and all that. I just wave that stuff.
Bill Lack is only one man. He just wants to thank God.
And the saloon.
All right. Last question comes from the always eloquent Rich Thompson. Rich says, gentlemen, like many Reds fans, I was hoping that Reds management and Joey Votto would come to terms on a way to bring him back to close out his career as a Red. Church, Rich. Unfortunately, that looks like that will not be the case, or at least for now. With that said, do you ever see Joey reconnecting with the Reds? And if so, which of the following scenarios do you see as best suited for him? 1, the Reds and Joey reconsider things, and Joey re-signs for the 2024 season. Joey signs with another team, but at the end of the 2024 season, he re-signs with the Reds on a 1-game contract where he can retire as a Red. Joey retires after the 2024 season and returns to the Reds as a radio TV broadcaster. After retiring, Joey decides to go in another direction with the Reds and joins the Riverfront family, where he becomes a co-host of the show. Well, let me say, I'll go first on this one. If Joey Votto wants to join the show, he's primary host. He is the host, and when he decides to let us on, we'll happily join. Wick, of those 4 scenarios, which do you want to see the most?
I still think there's a spot for him on this 2024 roster.
Let's
really
go.
Do I think that's going to happen? I don't. But I would love for him to have a formal connection to the Reds at some point as soon as possible. I don't know how soon that's going to be, unfortunately. So Debbie Downer over here.
Unfortunately. Think you're right. I see him signing with another team, and whether it's next season or the one after, retiring and then coming back and signing that one day deal and retiring as a Red. I think it's hard. Great. It's hard to watch that video he put out there that we were talking about earlier and not think that he holds this city in such high esteem that even if he holds a little bit of resentment towards the way it all ended, which he may or may not. Seems like he sure understood why. But it seems like he has such a great relationship and connection with his fan in this city that would be the case.
Yeah.
Bill?
I'm going off the board.
Ooh.
I want Joey to
none
come
of
back
the above.
I want him to come back and be the Reds minor league hitting instructor when he's retired.
Ooh.
I think he's got so much that he could teach and he seems to do it well. I mean, he's done it well with the guys on the major league roster now. I think he could be a fountain of information.
Oh, God. It's impossible to disagree with that. Hi.
We got a guest.
Hello.
We have the cutest guest in the history of the Riverfront. I love it.
Hey, Pickle.
Well, Bill, I'd love to see that. I think if he was kind of a AAA hitting coach, he could bring him on. Get in here. Who we got there?
Oh, that's my daughter Olivia.
Olivia.
She's a Joey Votto fan, not so much a Reds fan. I will add, I would love for Joey Votto, now that he has made enough money for the Reds to not afford him anymore, to buy the Reds.
Hey, now we're talking.
There we
Go
go.
team, Bob.
If he realizes Bill's goal of being a hitting instructor, maybe he can be the AAA hitting instructor and drive the team bus. All right. Let's go ahead and hop on here. We'll call it a night. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Wick, before we sign off, please let everybody know where they can find you.
You can find me at Red Reporter. I hope to get the podcast back up and going at some point in the near future.
Love that sneaky thing.
That had to pause for a while as we had our second daughter and we moved and whatnot, but we will hope to get that back up again at some point this offseason. But find me on redreporter.com. You can read our stuff there or on Twitter at Red Reporter. It's still Twitter to me. It's X to whoever else, but that's where you can track me down. So thank you for having me tonight, guys. It's good to get back off and join back up again.
Thank you for coming on. And everybody go ahead and go to your favorite podcast app and subscribe to Walks Will Haunts, because when it comes back, it's one of the best baseball podcasts out there. Bill, any final words for the family?
Nope. That's it.
All right, let's do it. Thank you, everyone, for listening and supporting the Riverfront. Tell your friends. Remember to subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, and you can find us on all the podcast apps. We are at Riverfront Cincy on all those places. Once again, huge thank you to our supporters at patreon.com/Riverfront Cincy. We could not do this without you. Shout out to Adam Dunn, the birthday boy. Shouts to Lisa Alberto and Wayne Krenchicki and Eli Cash. For Olivia Terrell.
You want to say bye? She's saying bye. There we go.
I love it. For Wick, for Bill Lack, this is Nate Dotson saying, take it easy, Cincinnati.